Hey, this is Mike Fugazi, and that is the first riff, the intro here to a series of videos on how to play rock harmonica, mostly from the blues player's perspective. And this first lesson here will hit on some prerequisite skills that might be helpful to follow along with some of my ramblings. And then we're going to talk about some of the note choices on a key of C harmonica. I have a Hohner Rocket here that is had some light gapping done, but essentially stock. So prerequisites to help you out would be some familiarity with playing blues, hopefully the blues scale, and a little bit of bending. And the understanding what second position is and how I can use a key of C harp to actually play in the key of G. Even better yet, if you understand what third position is as we get going. But for this first one here, if you can handle a little bit of the blues scale, you can play over some blues changes. That'll be great. I will warn you in advance, especially the first few videos. My use of technology will be limited. I'm not really sure how to get a backing track going to demonstrate some of this using this web camera. So I'll have to figure that out here in the next couple lessons, and we'll see how many people are actually interested in this and what direction we can take it. So feedback would be great, and we'll go from there. So what is essentially rock harmonica then? Think of guys like John Popper from Blues Traveler, Jason Ricci with Jason Ricci and the New Blood. Think of guys like Steve Baker, Lee Oscar, who also played with War. That's rock harmonica. So we're going to move from just playing blues stuff over different progressions to trying to get into some rock phrasing and note choices. You know, guys like Pat Ramsey, Paul Butterfield, you know, Mark Ford from the Ford Brothers, Andy Just for that matter. Those guys can rock pretty hard. Charlie Musselwhite, but they tend to play over a lot of blues and rhythm and blues and soul stuff. And you can definitely throw in some rock riffs, so even if you just plan on playing with blues bands, you want to throw in some flash or something, you know, that's terrific. But we'll try to approach it more of like taking over for a guitar in a classic rock band, or playing some music from the 90s or later after the last big blues revival, and how the harmonica can fit in that context. So whether you lip purse, U-block, tongue block, we should be able to cover some things that you'll find helpful. So this first one, we're going to focus mostly on note choice. We're just going to talk about note choice, and we'll go from there, maybe talk about some rhythm and dynamics next. I will definitely get into some of the flashier stuff and how to really rock out, but we should have just a basic understanding of where we're going and why. So let's talk about it from a blues perspective. I have a key of C harp. I'm going to play that in second position in the key of G. So hopefully that makes sense to you. Hopefully you have some background with the blues scale. And we'll go from there. So playing rock music. Think of music by the Rolling Stones, Led Zeppelin. Think of your favorite classic rock songs. Most of those songs have very similar chords to blues music. As a matter of fact, some of those progressions are nearly identical. If you take your blues progression, it would start on the G for 4 bars, and then it would go to the C for 2 bars, and back to the G for 2, and then the D for the start the turnaround. And you'd have your if you're running arpeggios and stuff. So there's the 4 chord. You can hear the pattern change. Then I come back. Then I get to the 5 chord. So put that all together. And we know blues music has generally 3 chords, the 1 chord, the 4, and the 5, and we can play the minor pentatonic or the blues scale over that, which is what most harmonica players learn. And that'll fit, it'll sound cool, it'll sound bluesy. Well, that blues progression is made up of the 1 chord, the 4 chord, and the 5 chord, and those tend to be dominant 7 chords. And the least you need to understand right now is that a lot of notes will work over that. And blues music tends to be stylized in 2 ways of making something sound bluesy, or the note selection from the blues scale, and also how the rhythm in which we play. And so what happens in rock is the rhythms change and the note choices change. So the blues scale will totally work. You can use the same notes in a lot of your blues phrasing over rock music, over a song like, even a major feeling song like Sweet Home Alabama, that'll work. A more minor feeling song like Miss You by the Rolling Stones, Sugar Blue, another great rock player. That blues scale will work. That's a good all-purpose scale because the blues scale will fit over both minor music and major music. You can make a major song, even Happy Birthday, a very major song, sound very bluesy. So that's a great all-purpose scale, a great place to start. And then as we get on in videos, we'll talk about how you can use that scale to phrase. Well, something you can apply right away is you can just expand the scales that work over those chords. And I'm not going to belabor the theory. Michael Rubin does a spectacular job of that with his harmonica meat and potatoes lessons. Just a great resource. David Barrett, who's just absolutely brilliant, has a whole website that will cover music theory from the blues perspective, and we'll hit on that. But I'm not going to spend a ton of time on that. I kind of want to make it more practical. So I guess the least to know is if you can handle the blues scale, we can add some notes to that. Those notes will work not only over blues songs but almost all rock songs. And so rather than talk a lot about pentatonics, let's just, I guess when I conceptualize harmonica, playing positions, following chord changes, I think of the notes I shouldn't play. What are the avoid tones? And then I rely on playing the notes around those, so the notes that fit. As we open up harmonica to rock styling and you're playing in cross harp, there aren't a lot of bad notes. You can play pretty much anything that lays out on the harmonica with standard notes or traditional draw bends. And that'll work, whether in most instances, as long as it's not a real minor song, those things will work. So one note that all of a sudden is open to us that can make things sound really fresh and interesting right now, even if you're still jamming with blues stuff, is in cross harp is the major third, which would be your 3-draw or 7-draw. And in blues, we would try to avoid that. That's one of the first things you learn, is not to play that note. We'll play everything around it, but we don't want to go. We want to go. Well, now all of a sudden, if you're playing rock music, add that note. Play it liberally, unless that song's a real minor song, like Take Cocaine. Eric Clapton's version of that, Don't Literally Take Cocaine. That second position with some of those major notes wouldn't work, but one of the most famous uses of that is in the song Run Around by Blues Traveler. John Popper plays that all the time. He's working out the 6 blow, the 6 draw, and the 7 draw, and the 7 blow. So that 7 draw, that all of a sudden, instead of being an avoid tone, becomes something you can hammer on. And guess what? That works in blues too. The same chords and the same notes that the guitar player is playing or the keyboard player is playing are the same ones in rock. What happens is the stylization of hammering the blues notes and how we approach the swing of those blues songs. Well, in a rock song, you can hammer on that note. That's a part of the chord that's built right into the chords of the harmonica. If I play what the harmonica was originally intended to do, which is chord on the bottom, melodies in the middle and top of the harp, that major third's right in the G chord. And that note's right there. So we can hammer on that. So we can still play 2 draw. We can play the 3 unbent. We can play the 3 bent to semitone, that blue third. And now we got another note we can play there if we can hit it. You can hit the A, which is that 3-draw bent down a whole tone, which is the same as 6-draw or 10-draw. Okay, now an avoid tone right now would be that 3 bent all the way down. We don't want to go. Okay, but we can hit the A, and we can hit the B flat. And a lot of times you can make it sound bluesy. You don't even have to worry about your intonation. You can slide into those things. So now all of a sudden we got 2 more notes than when you use with the blues scale. We can still play the 4 blow, the 4 bent, the 4 drop. Now all of a sudden we got another note we'll hammer on more, and I do this all the time in blues, is the 5 blow. We talk about the 5 draw all the time in the blues scale, being the flat 7th there, but now we can play that 5 blow. And then we have the 6 blow to resolve that octave. So essentially what we've done is we've taken, there's 2 ways of conceptualizing this. You can say you're playing the Mixolydian starting in G, which starts on 2 draw. I'm going to bend 3 down to A. I'm not going to play the flat 3rd. I'm going to go to the major 3rd, just the 3 draw. 4 blow, 4 draw, 5 blow, 5 draw, 6. Okay? And it almost sounds like the major scale except for that 5 draw. So we have an additional scale other than the blues scale that has more notes that we can play over rock songs, or right now you can play that over a blues song. That'll become really important because a lot of the rock playing that you hear tends to be flashier. There tend to be some speed bursts. It's more like a guitar, and if you really think about guys who play super fast, even a John Popper or a Jason Ricci, what they're doing on harmonica isn't that fast relative to other instruments, even a guitar. So, you know, I was listening to Little Wing by Stevie Ray Vaughan today, and a lot of the embellishments that he play are super fast on harmonica, but on guitar are pretty standard. Derek Trucks is another great example of somebody who plays deceptively fast. That's really hard to replicate on harmonica. He's a guitar player, but one of my favorite musicians, and so some of that can be tricky. And by learning this, whether you want to call it the Mixolydian Mode or an extension of the blues scale, whatever modality you want to talk about that, I'm butchering the music theory behind that. Those notes work, and they already work over blues. They won't make you sound like Little Walter, but they'll make you sound more like Paul Butterfield or Mark Ford or Lee Oscar or Jason Ricci, Pat Ramsey. And we can get into some patterns and some kind of action moves, some kind of power moves, you know, from that basic scale. So something to work right now is just getting familiar with that scale and coming up with some melodic ideas that include some of those extra notes. So we went from essentially the minor pentatonic with an extra note. The blues scale, which you know, for most blues players, we only play in the first 6 holes anyway. And now we got a longer scale with more notes. And that'll work over, you know, excuse me, that can work over blues music, that can work over music with a major feel if we want it to sound a little minor, a little bluesy, and you know, with the exception of 1 or 2 notes there, you can even play some minor stuff. So think of your regular blues chordings and your regular kind of classic rock sounds, and that Mixolydian mode will work really well. So if you can just get comfortable moving around that and knowing that your avoid tones change, there really aren't notes to avoid until you start bending things or you start overblowing or overdrawing things. So go ahead and give that a whirl. I'm not going to give a specific exercise at this point, just trying to get my feet wet and work up the courage to pump out some of these lessons. So to conclude the first part of this rock harmonica piece is re-examining our note choice And so we can create some new sounds. We can create some more modern, contemporary, rockish kind of sounds, even in blues music, if we expand the scale a little bit from the traditional blues scale to what would commonly be referred to as the Mixolydian mode. If you're looking for examples right off the top of my head where you can hear this over and over, go listen to Miss You and Sugar Blues solo on that. He uses a D harmonica, and he's playing the notes that we're talking about, multiple octaves. John Popper is probably the king of rock harmonica and using modalities other, like using cross harp but not playing the blues scale. That would be a great example. If you can track down some of Clint Hoover's early work, you'd hear that too. Jason Ricci talks about the minor and major pentatonic and using the Mixolydian mode even on his YouTube lessons. Go check that out. But just start opening your mind to some of those greater note choices, and the next time we'll talk about some of that note layout maybe on the high end of the harmonica, and then we'll turn that into some basic phrasing, and then hopefully we'll get through some exercises here. I have some memorized, but I do a horrible job of explaining what they are. I'm going to have to write them down and tab them out. And if you happen to have time this summer, I'll be at the Midwest Harmonica gathering in late June in St. Paul, Minnesota. You can check out midwestharmonica.com. And we'll have some lessons on the rock stuff. We'll get playing with each other. We'll get some backing tracks up, and we'll get you jamming along. I'll bring an effects board, and you can hammer out some of that stuff. Hopefully, we can even get you playing with the band if that's our objective, and playing some stuff other than blues with a band. And of course, I'll be doing some customizing lessons, showing people how to tweak harmonicas for better response for just general blues and rock playing, and getting into some overblow stuff. And I know Todd Parrott should be joining us, Brandon Bailey will be joining us, Jimmy Lee will be there, and Annie Raines will also be an instructor. So should be a good time, and I'm hoping to keep one a week or so lessons going up to that, talking about rock harmonica. Thank you very much, and we'll see you on YouTube soon.